In November 2024, the Warhammer community team put a post on Threads that was almost certainly meant to be a joke to drive engagement and be a bit silly. Just 6 words. Self-care starts with Warhammer. I say it's a joke, but it's kind of true, isn't it? Not necessarily Warhammer itself, but the component parts of it are kind of vital. It fires up your brain, focuses it into arts, craft, and storytelling, and gives you a pre-built community, to socialize with. The more I thought about it, the less I could let it lie. The post had fired up my brain. I had been planning something like this as a concept for a while, but much like miniature gaming itself, the post made me realize I had to write down the words, focus them into a story, and here is the final bit where I share it with the community. That's you. The community is the people who are watching this. This is the story about a few low points in my life, and a single Warhammer 40,000 army that followed me. The more I thought about it, the less this seems like a coincidence. This is a comedy about tragedy. This is a story about finding community in isolation, creativity in sickness, and family in grief. This is the story of the joy in valuing what are always seen as useless things. This is the story of my Death Guard army. It's 2020, and for those of you living under a rock, or who are watching this in 100 years' time, we are in the middle of lockdown. No one could leave the house. Everything is awful. And I started a new project to try and get through the isolation. I had already painted the Death Guard from the old 40k starter box, but I grabbed some bits from Conquest, Imperium, whichever one the magazine was that had like different models in from the time. I bought some off from friends. I got and then promptly lost the Space Marines Heroes set, which will come up later. I got myself a small horde of Death Guard Marines. Now, I hate how the Death Guard play. I like fast, aggressive armies that get in their opponent's face, but playing them was never the point. For those of you who don't know, the Death Guard worship the Chaos God called Nurgle. They are the demon god of plague, decay, disease, and ruin, but also of life, joy, and family. His followers call him Grandfather Nurgle, and they joke and sing through some of the most repulsive scenes that 40k has to offer. Honestly, it's exactly what my mind needed just for surviving lockdown. I called them the Spewgrin Vectorum. Vectorum being the word for what they call armies, and Spewgrin because, well, you can get it from the name. Early in lockdown, it was a dark joke, my edgy solo rebuttal to the clapping for essential workers as money we could have given them, which as an actual thank you, was squandered on the friends of politicians around the world. I finished the mini I picked up, had one last laugh at the very stupid joke, and then promptly shoved them in a box. Maybe to come out if someone wanted to give them a go and like the look of the other green guys. But I mean, it's no surprise that hobbies in general saw a boom over lockdown. People were scared, lonely, and looking for distractions. According to The Guardian, Games Workshop saw a rise of 87% in online sales in the first few months. Although That is obviously at the cost of 100% drop of the physical sales, but they made enough to pay every single employee a $5,000 bonus, which goes to show just how much people wanted something to break up the monotony of being stuck indoors. It also makes sense if you think about it. Hobbies are excellent at aiding with depression, and even people self-report being happier, healthier, and more satisfied with their lives. And on top of those incredible benefits, it also brings you together as a community, which will help combat loneliness, which will also help your mental and physical health. So yeah, I mean, just it it all feels kind of obvious, being on your own sucks. Because of all this, my death guard got me through a pretty tough time. And it'd be absolutely lovely if that was the end of the story. A few years after lockdown, my entire upper body stopped working. I had a stroke, heart and lung failure, and was left barely able to move or even see properly as my body tried very hard to cease functioning completely. I pulled through, obviously, but was basically confined to a chair for several months while my brain had to teach itself to work again. Painting, one of my main outlets for mental health, was a total no-go as my hands shook and my ability to focus meant I just couldn't do the detail work that I enjoy doing. I'm not very good at it, but I do quite like, freehanding and writing and stuff. Yeah. After a few cock-ups and ruined models, I found the old set of Space Marine heroes, the Death Guard ones. Screw it, they don't need to be clean. The colour scheme I chose for the army is simple, and if I can get them done, it'll help with my hand-eye coordination and confidence. So, another hard time, more Death Guard. It turns out that this is a great idea. The East London Headway, as an example, teaches art as a core part of its rehabilitation techniques, with modelling being shown to help your brain recover from trauma. Engaging in artistic hobbies force the brain to strengthen neural pathways and repair after injury, and wargaming engages multiple artistic hobbies at once. You're building, sculpting, painting, writing. You've got to think logically while playing. It's actually insane just how much war games help with your recovery if you're unlucky enough to suffer brain damage. On top of this, creative pursuits really help with people dealing with brain injury. They help you communicate with others, an act that I promise you take for granted until you just can't. So, yeah, once again, a difficult time helped by my small but growing Death Guard army. Still, even after a pandemic and brain injuries, things could always get worse. Our story fast forwards to Christmas last year, and without wanting to dwell too much, after giving gifts, eating lunch, and playing some board games with my family, my uncle went upstairs to bed and he never came down again. While helping go through his stuff, we found some of his old models, some truly old Rogue Trader stuff that baby me had got his hands on in the early 90s to convert, and that I will not show for fear of traumatizing the elders in the audience who know what they're now worth. And also, for the purposes of this story, some of his Death Guard. I don't know how much my uncle knew or really cared about the deep emotional lore of the Death Guard. He just liked the gas mask chic. And that one mini that's holding his bolter like a badass that everyone from the late Road Trader and early 22nd edition loved. But he had a decent collection at one point. Probably cannibalized by me when he stopped playing, but one bit I had forgotten was the elephant tank. It's based on the second version of the Predator from late 2nd edition. It's a plastic rhino hull with a metal turret, which means that it already weighs more than a small dog, and that is before the brick of Millipup crafting putty that he had added to make the head and the mouth and everything else. I think the wires are actual electrical cable, and it was painted to look like a demon-corrupted ultramarine vehicle, and yes, it is eating a slayer standing in as a half-naked squat. This is the oddest one for me. These don't feel like my models, but they're a tribute to the man who taught me the joy of painting little toy soldiers. He never played that, that's entirely me, but I've shown some of my earliest models on the channel before, and he's the one who taught me. Like, when I was very small, he literally held my hand and guided my brush. So here we are, and while it was started by him, the tank has finally been finished by me. It's our last joint project. So yeah, it's long been held that creativity can be fueled by grief as much as it can aid it, with arts and crafts having a meditative property that can help focus and soothe the mind, as well as giving people a sense of control. You regain a sense of power through invention and creation. It means you make something. And if you go the step further, you get to what I did, so-called remembrance crafts, involving creating things as a tangible memory of a deceased loved one to work through the grief while honoring their life. In many ways, dealing with grief is the hardest sell for wargaming specifically. I mean, it's hard to really claim that you made a commemorative missile launcher, but that doesn't mean it can't work. In fact, the sheer ridiculous of it kind of goes back round to my original premise for the Death Guard. It's all about laughing through pain, through the darkest days, and knowing that you'll come out the other side. Yeah, this too shall pass. So here we are, an army I'll never play that symbolizes overcoming depression, injury, illness, and loss. A bunch of toys that just display my ability to bounce back from whatever life throws at me. Rah! Now, in the sake of completeness, I will add that, of course, it wasn't just the Death Guard. A major lockdown project was painting a knight to look like it was the Bio Tapestry, and a close friend got me the absolutely phenomenal black Gobbo miniature as a distraction after my uncle died. But damn it, I have a narrative to tell, and these are extras in that story. These miniatures also weren't the only thing that got me through, and I would be remiss and frankly feel a bit irresponsible if I didn't highlight my privilege in having the support network of a family, friends, and a medical system that all help social, physical, and emotional healing. Creative therapy and self-care help, they're great, but it is part of any recovery process from any trauma. And in a statement I know is the height of irony coming from a YouTube channel that focuses on solo wargaming, nobody needs to or should have to work through any trauma on their own. Yeah. I've, I've called this part a conclusion, but honestly, I don't know if it's right as a term. I don't think I really have conclusions so much as catharsis. This has been on my mind for months, and I just needed to get it out of my brain, screamed at anyone who will watch. But I think that the message has value. Wargaming isn't just a silly little thing. It has real benefits that can really help you and those around you. And honestly, now more than ever, I think people need or don't deserve love and care, both from themselves and from others. So, with that in mind, if you got this far, goddamn, remain being awesome. Get the gaming. Just get it now that you know you clearly need it for the good of your health. And be great to each other. And as always, thank you so much for watching and have a great night. Night.